Well, welcome everyone to our interview with Audrey Jones, CFP, who's been in the business for a long time, and someone I sat with on the CFP Board's Council of Education for several years. Audrey, thank you so much for being here today. I was wondering if we could start by you telling us a little bit about yourself, and maybe you can describe for our listeners your business model and your niche.
I am a fee-only advisor. I have been in the financial area since '94, CFP since 1999, and in business for myself for about 5 years. My niche is the women, mostly widows, divorcees that are on their own, that need a lot of hand-holding and need a lot of assurances that everything is okay.
You know, one of the questions I always like to ask experienced planners is, what do you think is the main value that you bring to your clients? Would you be able to share that with us?
Yes, and I really think that's a very interesting question, because you'll hear from just about every advisor, I bring peace of mind to my clients. And in some ways we all do. The interesting point is, as we were describing for the niche, we bring peace of mind to our niche in our own special way. So such as myself, I bring peace of mind because they really want to lean on somebody. They want to be assured. Most of the women that I work with don't understand financial issues. So they have to have somebody they can trust and lean on, that everything is going to be okay, that they've hired someone that can do that. Then again, you can have a niche of engineers. Engineers, if I just told them, you know, everything is going to be okay, they want to see the numbers. So for those kind of advisors, they have to be really numbers-based to help them do that. Same thing with doctors. I just find it's very interesting, because we all say it and we all do it, but we all do it so differently.
Well, as you know, in this course, we study several different disciplines, including social psychology and leadership and consumer finance. And you know, one of the questions in that area of social psychology that I'd like to ask you, how does a client's sense of self-worth or self-efficacy impact the way that you interact with them?
It has a lot to do with it. One, they're probably not going to reach out to you if they feel like they have incredible knowledge in the area. So they already feel a little bit overwhelmed. That is a big issue. But even more for the people in my area, you have to confirm to them that there aren't really any wrong or right answers. A lot of them will say, did I answer that correctly? Did I do it right? And there really isn't. It's only what's right for them. So you have to keep affirming to them that that's okay. Your feelings are your feelings, and let's work through it. Some are going to take a little more education than others. Some aren't going to want that education. They just don't understand it and just want to trust. But the more they don't understand the numbers, the more education, if they want it, and this is where you're going to have to really be sensitive, because if their eyes glaze over, after 2 or 3 minutes, you're losing them. And that may be the point where you just don't need to do that education. They just want to lean on you, and as they know, they have confidence in you. And this is where a lot of times I see they will ask questions that they have about investments, various things like that. That's not really what they're wanting. They're wanting to know that you know the answers to the questions and that they've hired the right person. So I guess a question that I get similarly is, I have people that call and say, my investments aren't performing, They're not doing what they need. I'm not sure my advisor's doing what I do is correctly. So I invite them in. We have a conversation. And I will sit back and I'll say, so these are a lot of interesting numbers. Well, what does this mean to you? And a lot of them will say, that's right. That's what I'm getting to. I have no idea what this means. So we have to know the numbers. It's very important that we know the numbers. But they don't necessarily have to know the numbers. They have to know that you know the numbers and that everything's okay.
Well, thank you for sharing that. Really interesting. You know, I was wondering, how do you identify your clients' values and beliefs? And then once you kind of understand that, how do you help them move beyond those limiting or those unproductive preconceptions, beliefs, you know, money tapes?
This is what I think is some of the most fun, interesting parts of this profession. The first meeting that I have, whether it can go as long as an hour and a half, we do fact finding, but at least the first part is finding out about their beliefs, finding out what's important to them. You ask the question, and then you just listen. And it can be so interesting how they wind in and out, and then they start talking about their business or their family or a charity that they're very involved with. And you get little glimpses of this very interesting person underneath. And this is what we write these down. We write down what's important. We find out why money is important, because we find that money is just a tool. Sometimes a tool looks like a shovel. Sometimes it looks like a bulldozer. Sometimes it looks at various things. But what does your tool look like? And we write all these down and say, when you want to feel, when you're at the end of your life and you want to feel fulfilled, what are the things that are going to help you feel fulfilled in your life? Many times it's definitely not monetary values. It's things they want to do, but it's not monetary values. So you write that down, and then you say, every year we're going to look at these. And if your value is, I want to take a cruise once a year with the family, and we find that you can do that or how you can do that, and you're not, I'm going to call you out on it. And I'm going to say, why aren't you? This is what you said was going to make you fulfilled. So in a way, we make them accountable to their fulfilling their dreams. Then as far as unhealthy beliefs, like we were talking in the last segment, they will shut down and just say, I don't like this. I don't like the way we're going. And you can keep taking a baseball bat and hitting them and saying, yeah, you got to do it, you got to do it, you got to do it. But more often, if you sit there and say, so tell me, what are you feeling? I'm just not comfortable. What comes to mind when you're not comfortable? I just remember when I was growing up, my father put all this money in and he lost it all, and I'm scared I'm going to be like that again. Or various things happen. We've always had to struggle. I had to save my pennies to go to the fair to get, a cotton candy ball. All these feelings, money is so full of emotions. Asking these questions, getting more insight. And then what's really fun is when the client, a light bulb kind of comes on and goes, you know what? That's what's causing this, isn't it? And I may smile and say, yes, you're on the right track. And do you think that's a good thing or a bad thing? And that's another whole conversation. But when you guide them through and see these blocks and feel the reason why and work through it, they pretty much self-diagnose themselves and come out of it. It's not a fast process, but it's extremely interesting. And what a bonding and growing period that you have with your client when you do that is just fascinating.
Yes, I know from talking to you many times, your relationship with your clients it's really solid, and it clearly comes through in the stories that you're telling. If I can ask you another question in this same area, um, how do you approach a conversation about money? Specifically, when we're trying to help our clients juggle this idea between savings now, media consumption versus deferring to the future. How do you approach that whole conversation?
I do it through stories and pictures, mind pictures, I would say. And I let them sort through in their mind what is more important. Um, some will say, and this is where I've come across, to be honest with you, with a lot of interns and things I've worked with, a lot of people want, or a lot of advisors want to give the clients their values and their priorities because that's what they feel that they should do. That's not our job. Our job is to help them sort through and prioritize what is best for them. Many times it will end up what you would say, but it has so much more validity when they do it. So we sit down and I really want to take this vacation. I really want a brand new car that's got all these bells and whistles. I've had one client say, I'm going to diversify into a Mercedes. Then you sit and say, that's all fine. When do you really think you want to retire? So you're telling me you really don't want to retire at 65. You want to retire at 72, or do you really think you're going to be working part-time for the rest of your life? What do you want? And then they're kind of quiet, and then you just sit and listen. And I guess it's kind of like that commercial with the orange money. You know, I'm going to take this orange money and not spend it on the grill. I'm going to take the orange money and pay for the retirement. But take good notes, because they will correct themselves. Now, there's some clients that we call fun but hopeless. And you beat your head against the wall, and they don't get it. And that's the time that you decide, I like you, but I can't help you. So that's the case there. But many times if you sit and say, oh, so you're telling me you don't want to retire right away? Oh, you're telling me this? No, not really. Let me think about this more.
You'll remember when you visited one of our capstone classes, and you shared some wonderful insights with the students there. And one of the questions related to what's a skill set that someone new coming in the industry, what do you value? And you said a really interesting comment. You said, I value the new planner who's willing to ask that client the difficult questions. And so as we think about social psychology and everything that's going on, inside our client, how do you ask those difficult questions in a way that you don't just get the client totally defensive or they're starting to shut down on you?
You ask them in a way of obtaining knowledge about them, not trying to dictate any kind of a perceived answer that you have to have it one way or the other. Like we were mentioning before, they don't want to move forward. So you can ask numbers questions. What is your first memory of money? What was the best thing that you did with money? What is the worst thing that you've done with money? And the hard thing is many people have to sit and think about it for a while. And many people don't want to have that dead air silence. And you ask that, and you ask it in a very caring tone, and you listen. You have to find out instead of seeing the symptoms, you got to find out the cause. And until you find out the cause, and you just keep digging. So explain more. What happened with this experience? Do you think you've gotten over that? Is this something that's still following you through today? What do you think you need to do to help you through that time, to get past it? It's much more psychological than it has anything to do with numbers. But they get the idea that you really care about them, that you really want to do the best for them. And it's a self-realization for them too. So if you say it in that manner, like, well, what's the matter? How come you don't like money? Don't you like this? Don't you want to, wait a minute, you don't want to buy life? Don't you want to take care of your wife? Come on. You know, you have to avoid those and not make any presumptions about what their feelings are and what their values are. Take them for who they are. They are special. They have their own. And sometimes they will do something and say, this is what I believe and this is what I do, and they put their foot down, and you have to say, okay, that's you. Now, the question is how does the spouse feel about that? And that's another video.
For sure. Yeah.